The harsh reality of the Middle Ages. You wouldn't make it. Fall asleep to history. The wind howls through the empty streets, an endless, mournful cry that sweeps across the broken stones of the village square. It seems to echo off the crumbling walls of the ancient cottages. The sound carried with it the stories of those who once lived here, now nothing more than whispers in the cold night air. The faint smell of wet earth, mingled with the pungent odor of rotting wood, drifts through the gaps in the stonework. It is a scent of decay of lives long past, of a world where survival is a constant battle against the elements, disease, and death itself. The firelight flickers within a small stone cottage at the edge of the village, its warmth an almost sacred refuge from the unforgiving chill outside. The walls, thick with the remnants of years gone by, seem to groan beneath the weight of time. The hearth crackles, the flames casting dancing shadows across the room, creating fleeting images of ghosts of people who once dreamed of something more than the relentless struggle for survival. The woman sitting before the fire, her back hunched against the chill, stares into the flames. Her face is a map of hard years. Sunken eyes, a brow furrowed with worry, lips thin from lack of rest and the constant gnawing hunger that gnaws at her insides. Her name is Margaretha, though no one outside the village remembers it anymore. In the grand scheme of things, she is but one small, insignificant soul in a world of millions. She was born to a life of poverty, and she will likely die in the same way. Her hands, rough from years of labor, clutch the iron handle of an old scythe, its blade worn down by time and use. It is the only tool she possesses, and it is the only thing that stands between her and the desolate hunger that threatens her family. She has learned to respect it, this simple, ancient tool. It is a lifeline, even if it is little more than a shadow of its former sharpness. The room is small, cluttered with the detritus of everyday life. Tattered blankets, sacks of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, and a worn wooden table covered in chipped pottery. There are no luxuries here, no comforts. Even the bed in the corner is little more than a pile of straw, covered by a thin blanket. But for Margaretha, it is all she knows. It is all she has ever known. Her children sit huddled together near the fire, their small bodies shivering under the ragged layers of clothing that barely protect them from the biting cold. The youngest, a boy of no more than 5, clutches a ragged doll to his chest, his wide eyes blinking against the smoke rising from a hearth. His older sister, no more than 10, strokes his hair gently, trying in vain to comfort him with soft whispers. But even she cannot mask the fear that lingers in her own eyes. There is a palpable tension in the room, the weight of an uncertain future pressing down on every breath they take. Tomorrow, like all the days before it, will be a struggle for food, for warmth, for survival. Margaretha does not speak to them. She does not have to. The silence is enough. She is already planning the next day's work, already steeling herself for the burdens that tomorrow will bring. Tomorrow, she will return to the fields with her husband, Johann, to try to harvest what little crop remains before the frost settles in. The harvest has been poor this year, just as it has been for many years now. The land, once fertile and kind, has turned against them, its soil barren, its gifts meager, and yet they continue to work, as if the earth will one day remember them, as if one day the heavens will be merciful and provide the bounty they so desperately need. But Margaretha knows better. The world she lives in offers no mercy. There is no such thing as fairness here, only survival. And survival, she knows, is a cruel and fickle thing. Johann has not yet returned from the fields, though it is late. She knows that he will come back eventually, his face pale and drawn from the labor, his back aching from the endless toil. He will say little, as he always does, too tired to speak of the pain that weighs down his bones. But Margaretha can read the look in his eyes, the same look she sees in her own reflection every morning, a look of quiet resignation, of knowing that the world is unforgiving, and that no amount of prayer or work will change that. The wind outside picks up again, rattling the shutters and making the walls of the cottage groan in protest. Margaretha turns her head, eyes narrowing against the sound. The winter winds are always worse this time of year, bringing with them a biting cold that cuts through even the thickest of cloaks. The fire will not be enough to keep them warm if the frost comes early. The children's shivers are growing more pronounced, and Margaretha feels a familiar ache of dread settle in her chest. She has seen winters like this before, and each one has been more brutal than the last. She fears this one will be no different. She rises slowly, her joints creaking with the effort, her body protests, aching from the constant strain of years of work, of bending to the land's unyielding demands. Her hands, callous and rough, move to the hearth, adding another log to fire. The flames leap higher, crackling as the new wood catches. For a moment, the room is warmer, the light brighter, and the shadows less threatening. She glances at her children, their faces soft with sleep now, and she feels a fleeting moment of peace. For tonight, at least, they are safe. But Margaretha knows that this peace is fragile, like the glow of the fire itself. It will fade, and with it will come the cold, the hunger, the fight for survival. The door creaks open, and Johann steps into the cottage, his heavy boots leaving a trail of mud on the floor. He is covered in the dust of the fields, his face streaked with dirt, his breath visible in the cold air. His shoulders are hunched, not just in the way of the labor, but from something deeper, something that Margaretha knows but cannot name. He closes the door behind him, the gust of wind cutting off as the room is sealed tight. Johann says nothing at first, merely removes his cloak and drapes it over the back of the chair. He moves to the fire, rubbing his hands together, the warmth a small relief. Margaretha watches him in silence, her eyes tracing the familiar lines of his face. The years have not been kind to him, either. His hair, once thick and dark, has begun to thin, his face drawn with a constant wear of hard work. "Did you?" Margaretha begins, but her voice catches in her throat. She does not need to finish the question. She already knows the answer. He shakes his head, his gaze falling to the floor. "It's gone. Everything's gone." His voice is rough, tired. There is no anger in it, only the quiet acceptance of something they have both known would come. Margaretha nods, the weight of his words sinking into her like a stone. They stand together in the flickering firelight, silent for a long while. There is no need for word between them. They both know that in this world, the only thing that matters is survival. The crops have failed, the winter is coming, and the land will not provide for them. Soon, they will be faced with a choice, one that will test them more than anything they have ever faced before. The frost will come, the food will be gone, and they will have to fight not just for their own survival, but for the survival of their children. Tomorrow, Margaretha will return to the fields. She will take the scythe in her hands once more, and she will fight against the land, against the cold, against the coming darkness. It will not be enough, but it will be all she can do. And perhaps, for a time, that will be enough. Outside, the wind continues to howl, the sound of it seeping through the cracks in the stone walls. The bell tolls in the distance, echoing across the village, signaling the passing of another day of struggle, another day of survival. And Margaretha knows, deep in her bones, that the fight will never end. Not as long as the world remains the way it is, harsh, cold, indifferent. She turns back to fire, the flames casting long, dancing shadows across the room. The children are asleep, their faces peaceful in their dreams. And for a brief moment, Margaretha allows herself to imagine a world where things could be different, a world where the land is kind, where the winters are mild, where her children grow up free from the fear of hunger. But the thought is fleeting, and soon she shakes it off, as she always does. In this world, survival is the only thing that matters. And for now, that will have to be enough. The battlefield is eerily quiet. The sounds of war that once tore through the air, the cries of soldiers, the clash of swords, the roar of battle, have faded into the distance, leaving behind only the oppressive silence of the aftermath. The ground beneath is thick with blood and mud, the two blending together into a dark, visceral mixture that clings to the soles of boots and the hem of cloaks. A faint mist rises from the earth, the smell of death hanging heavy in the air. The once proud banners of combatants now lie crumpled on the ground, their vibrant colors dimmed by the dirt and grime of the day's violence. In the midst of this desolation walks a lone knight, his armor dented, scarred, and streaked with mud. The gleam of his once polished plate is dulled, and his sword, though still sharp, bears the marks of use, scratches, nicks, and bloodstains that cannot be washed away. His movements are slow, deliberate, as if each step carries the weight of 1,000 burdens. His face, though hidden behind a helm, betrays the exhaustion, the weariness that has settled deep into his bones. He is tired, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally, mentally. The war, the endless fighting, has wore him down. His heart is heavy with the realization that what he once believed in, honor, duty, glory, has been shattered, its pieces scattered across the blood-soaked ground. The knight's name is Sir Alistair, though he no longer feels worthy of it. Once, he was a man of purpose, a warrior who fought with a conviction that his actions serve a noble cause. He had believed in the grandeur of his orders, the righteousness of his cause, and the promise that victory would bring glory, wealth, and a place in the annals of history. But all that feels distant now, like a forgotten dream. The only truth that remains is a hollow echo of battle, the endless cycle of bloodshed, loss, and the gnawing awareness that there is no real victory in war, only survival. His armor is a prison now, not a symbol of pride. The weight of it presses down on him, each plate like a stone on his soul, each movement a reminder of his inability to escape the brutality of the world he lives in. His shoulders are hunched, his back aching with the constant strain of carrying this burden. His eyes, though visible through the slits of his helm, are empty, devoid of the spark that once burned brightly in the heat of battle. He moves forward, step by slow step, as the sky above him darkens, the last light of day fading into the horizon. The wind picks up, biting through the gaps in his armor, sending a chill through his body. The familiar stench of death and decay fills the air, a cruel reminder of the violence that has marked his life for so long. The bodies of the fallen lie scattered across the field, some clothed in the bright colors of their armies, others in the rags of peasants pressed into service. They are the forgotten ones, their lives as expendable as the blades they once wielded. They were once soldiers, once warriors like him, but now they are nothing more than casualties of a war that will never truly end. Sir Alistair comes across the body of a fallen comrade, a man he had fought beside many times in the past. The knight's eyes fall to the lifeless form, his heart sinking in his chest. The man's face is frozen in an expression of surprise, a final moment of fear caught in time. His hand is still wrapped tightly around the hilt of his sword, his fingers stiff with the rigor of death. Sir Alistair kneels beside him, reaching out a hand to gently close the man's eyes, though he knows it won't bring him back. For a moment, the knight feels a deep pang of guilt. He should have been there to protect him, to ensure that his comrade did not meet this end. But the chaos of battle had swept him away, carried him in a tide of blood and violence, and now, this man, this friend, is gone, lost to the very thing Sir Alistair had dedicated his life to, war. He has lost so many men like this, so many faces that he once knew, but the pain is no less sharp. The faces blur together over time, but the grief is constant, a weight he cannot shake off. He stands slowly, his hand lingering on the hilt of his sword, as if seeking some connection to the world he once knew, some sense of purpose that might anchor him to something greater than the brutality of war. But there is nothing. The silence of the battlefield presses down on him like a tomb, and for the first time, he wonders what it all means. What was the point of this? What was the point of any of it? The distant sound of hooves interrupts his thoughts, and he turns, his hand instinctively reaching for his sword. A rider appears on the horizon, silhouetted against the fading light. The figure is small at first, but it grows larger with each passing moment. The rider comes into view, a messenger, his horse ridden hard and foaming at the mouth. The messenger's face is pale, his eyes wide with urgency. He pulls his horse to a stop beside Sir Alistair, bowing his head in respect. Sir Alistair, the messenger, gasps, his voice trembling. The battle, it is over. Sir Alistair does not reply at first. He stands motionless, staring at the ground as the weight of the words sinks in. He has heard this many times before, this hollow declaration of victory or defeat, and yet it never loses its sting. The messenger continues, his voice faltering. Your lord's army, they have won the day. The enemy has been routed, and our forces are preparing to march on the capital. Sir Alistair's heart does not stir at the news. His hands, once eager to wield a sword in the name of his lord, now feel numb. The words ring hollow in his ears. Victory? What does victory mean in a world like this? What does it mean when the cost is measured in lives, in blood, in the broken bodies of men who will never see another dawn? We won. The messenger repeats, more urgently now. The war is over. Your Lord will be pleased. Sir Alistair looks at the messenger, his eyes empty. He does not feel the rush of triumph that once would have filled him. There is no glory in this, no honor to be found. There is only the bitter taste of loss and the gnawing feeling that it will never end. He raises his sword, the blade gleaming faintly in the fading light, and for a moment it feels like a symbol of everything he has lost. The ideals he once held dear, the dreams of a better world that now seem distant, unreachable. I have no lord, Sir Alistair mutters, his voice hoarse. The words escape him like confession, as if saying them aloud will somehow make them real. I only have the battle. The war never ends. The messenger looks at him, confusion and pity in his eyes, but he says nothing. Sir Alistair turns away, his hand tightening around the sword's hilt. He begins to walk away from the battlefield, the sounds of the messenger's protests fading behind him. The wind picks up again, biting through his armor, and for the first time in a long time, Sir Alistair allows himself to feel the chill. He is numb, not just to the cold, but to the world around him. His soul feels frozen, paralyzed by the endless cycle of violence that has defined his life for so long. The knight's footsteps echo in the stillness as he walks, each one heavier than the last. He passes through the remains of the battlefield, stepping carefully over bodies, his gaze fixed on the horizon. In the distance, the first rays of dawn break through the dark sky, casting a pale light over the ruined land. It is a new day, but it feels no different from the one before it. The war is over, but for Sir Alistair, the battle continues within him. He wonders if he will ever be free of it, if there will ever be a day when he can lay down his sword and leave this life behind. But deep down he knows the answer. He knows that the way of his past, the blood that stains his hands, will follow him wherever he goes. He has fought too long, bled too much, to ever escape it. The knight's journey is not one of heroism or glory. It is a journey of survival, of trying to hold on to something, anything, that can give meaning to this life that has become a never-ending war. And as he walks, the wind still howling in his ears, he knows that the only way to continue is to endure, to push forward, one step at a time. The battle is over, but the war rages on. The chapel is silent, except for the rhythmic sound of the monks' prayers. It is an eerie quiet, the kind that fills the soul with both peace and unease. The walls of the monastery are cold, stone blocks stacked high to protect against the harsh winds that blow through the mountain pass. The air inside smells faintly of incense and old wood, a scent that clings to the robes of the men who walk in and out of the sacred space. The flickering light of the candle flames casts soft, trembling shadows on the walls, as if the very stones are breathing in time with the prayers. In the center of the chapel, beneath the delicate archways and stained glass windows that tell the stories of saints long past, knelt a young novice. His name is Brother Elias, though he has already begun to forget who he was before he entered these walls. He is barely more than a boy, with a face that still carries the softness of childhood, though it is beginning to harden with the weight of the vows he has taken. His hands, clasped together in prayer, tremble slightly, though he tries to still them. The hours pass slowly, each prayer longer than the last, each breath heavier as the boy finds himself drifting deeper into thought. There is no sound in the room save for the murmured Latin of the monks around him and the soft scrape of their knees against the cold stone floor. And yet, in the silence, 1,000 thoughts pressing on him. He is meant to be at peace here, meant to find solace in the quiet, in the rituals of the faith he has chosen to devote himself to. Yet the stillness feels suffocating at times. His thoughts often wander to the world beyond the monastery walls, the fields, the villages, the people he has left behind. He was born to a simple life, a life of toil and struggle, much like his fellow villagers. But here in the monastery, there is only the promise of eternal salvation, a life of devotion and service to God. And yet, there are moments when Brother Elias feels a pang of longing deep within him. It is not for worldly wealth, nor for fame or fortune. It is the ache for something he cannot name, a desire for freedom, for the simple joys of life outside these walls. The warmth of the sun on his face, the smell of fresh bread baking, the sound of birdsong in the trees. All the things he left behind when he entered the monastery at the age of 12. He had been promised peace, but what he found was something altogether different. The faint murmurs of the monks continue around him, their prayers endless, their devotion unquestioned. Brother Elias tries to focus on the words, to make them his own, to feel the weight of their meaning. But it is difficult. His mind drifts again, this time toward the memories of his mother's face. He can still see her, standing in the doorway of their cottage, her eyes filled with tears as she watched him leave. She had said nothing as he walked away, no words of encouragement or farewell. Only the sadness in her eyes, a sadness that seemed to cut deeper than anything he had ever felt before. That was the moment he had left his old life behind. That was the moment he had pledged himself to this life of silence and prayer. But in his heart, Brother Elias is not sure if he made the right choice. He wanted to be a good son, a good man, but he felt the pull of the monastery, the call of something greater. And now, in the quiet of the chapel, he wonders if he's made a grave mistake. The soft thrum of his heartbeat is the only sound he can hear now, and the silence inside the chapel seems to deepen. The monks around him move in synchronized reverence, their heads bowed, their hands raised in quiet supplication. The sound of their murmurs is like the wind outside, gentle, persistent, inevitable. Brother Elias struggles with the stillness. His body aches from kneeling for so long, his back stiff with the weight of his vows. And yet, the greater ache is in his heart. He had come here seeking purpose, seeking God's will for his life. But all he feels now is a crushing sense of isolation. The walls of the monastery, which should offer protection and peace, instead seem to close in on him. The sacredness of space, the quiet reverence of the monks, all of it has become a prison, a place where his soul is locked away in silence, where his longing for something more is smothered under layers of piety and ritual. A soft sigh escapes his lips, barely audible, as his fingers curl tighter around a rosary he has held for years. The beads are smooth and worn, their edges frayed by the constant touch of his fingers. They have become an extension of himself, an anchor in the midst of his turmoil. And yet, as he holds the rosary, a part of him wonders if it is enough. The bell in the distance tolls once, then twice. It is time for evening vespers, the final prayers of the day. Brother Elias rises slowly from his knees, the sound of his robes brushing against the cold stone floor a sharp contrast to the stillness of the room. The other monks do the same, each of them moving in the same slow, deliberate manner. They are creatures of habit, men who have given themselves over to the rhythm of the liturgy, the unbroken cycle of prayer, work, and silence. Brother Elias moves to the altar, his hands shaking as he adjusts the candles, their flames flickering in the breeze from the open window. The night is coming quickly, and with it, a chill that seeps into his bones. The evening air carries a scent of earth and stone, the smell of the outside world, a world that seems so distant, so unreachable from within these walls. As he arranges the candles, Brother Elias catches a glimpse of his reflection in the polished surface of the altar. His face is thin, his eyes too large for his gaunt features, his hair dark but thinning slightly at the crown. There is something about his reflection that unsettles him. He looks so different from the boy who first walked into this chapel. Then he had been eager, full of purpose, certain in his decision to devote his life to God. But now he feels lost, adrift in the sea of doubt and longing. The bell tolls again, louder this time, signaling the beginning of vespers. Brother Elias forces himself to focus, to return to the rhythm of the prayers. The monks begin to chant in unison, their voices rising in the familiar melody of devotion. It is beautiful, haunting, and for a moment, Brother Elias allows himself to be swept away by the music. The sound fills the chapel, wrapping around him like a warm blanket, calming his restless heart. But even in the midst of the sacred words, his mind continues to wander. His thoughts drift back to the village, to the life he left behind. He remembers the smell of the fresh hay in the fields, the sound of his mother's voice calling him to help with the harvest. He remembers the laughter of the children as they played by the river, their voices full of life, full of joy. The monks around him chant louder, the rhythm of their voices growing faster, more insistent. The tension in Brother Elias' chest tightens, and he feels a sudden urge to flee. He cannot stay here any longer, not with these thoughts tearing at his soul. The walls of the chapel are closing in on him, and the weight of his vows presses down on him like the stones of the mountain that surrounds the monastery. He clutches a rosary in his hands, his fingers digging into the smooth beads, seeking some sort of comfort, some sign that he has not made a mistake. But the silence that follows the prayer is deafening, and his heart feels emptier than before. In that moment, Brother Elias understands something that he has known deep down for years. He will never truly belong to this place, no matter how hard he prays, no matter how many vows he takes. His heart will always yearn for the world outside the monastery walls, for freedom he once had, for the life he left behind. The bell tolls again, signaling the end of Vespers. The monks rise in unison, their heads bowed, their faces serene. Brother Elias remains seated, his hands resting in his lap, his eyes fixed on the candlelight as if it might provide the answers he seeks. But it does not. It only flickers in the dimming light of the evening, a fleeting symbol of something he cannot grasp. As the other monks file out of the chapel, Brother Elias lingers behind, staring into the empty space. His breath is shallow, his thoughts scattered. He is alone in the silence, and for the first time, he wonders if this is what it means to be truly devoted, to be so consumed by faith that the rest of the world disappears, leaving only the empty void of longing. The door creaks open, and a soft voice calls to him, breaking the spell. It is Brother Thomas, his elder and closest confidant. "Brother Elias," he says quietly, "it is time to rest. The Lord will guide you." But Brother Elias does not move. He simply nods, too tired to speak, too weary to protest. The night stretches before him, an endless expanse of shadow and silence, and he knows, deep within his heart, that the struggle is far from over. The sun is setting over the village, casting a warm orange glow over the thatched roofs of the cottages. But beneath the peaceful exterior of the fading light, there is a tension in the air, a tension born not only of the long day's work, but of something deeper, more inescapable. In the distance, the sound of the blacksmith's hammer rings through the air, and the distant bleating of sheep fills the silence that follows. The earth smells rich with the dust of the day's labor, a scent of sweat and toil, of the relentless cycle of life in the medieval world. In one of the smaller cottages, hidden behind a thick curtain of ivy, a young woman named Alicia sits by the hearth, her hands busy with the work she has done for years. Her long hair, dark as the night, is pulled back into a rough knot, and her face is streaked with the marks of the day's work. Soil beneath her nails, flour dusted across her worn dress, and the sheen of exhaustion that clings to her skin. The fire crackles in the hearth, sending flickers of light across the small, humble room. The scent of roasting meat, slow cooked for hours, wafts through the air, mixing with the smell of the herbs she has been drying for the winter months. It is a quiet life, a life of service and survival. And yet, even in the midst of this routine, Alicia feels a gnawing ache deep inside her chest, a longing that has become harder to ignore. Alicia has lived this way for as long as she can remember. Her father died when she was a child, leaving her and her mother to fend for themselves. In the years since, she has learned to embrace the harsh rhythm of the land, to pull water from the well and grind the grain, to spin wool into thread and sew the family's clothing. She has become adept in the ways of the home, skilled with her hands, strong in the face of adversity. Yet, she knows that no matter how well she tends to the hearth, no matter how hard she works, her value will never be truly seen. Not here, not in this village. The medieval world is harsh for women like Alicia, born without the privilege of nobility or land, without the protection of a husband. She is little more than a tool for survival. Her mother is the head of their household, but the weight of managing the farm and caring for the family is solely on Alicia's shoulders. She has long ago learned to hide the loneliness she feels, the sharp pangs of isolation that arise when she lies awake at night, staring at the ceiling and wondering what life might be like had she been born a man, had she been given the opportunities she sees around her, the choices that would allow her to step beyond the boundaries of her gender. Tonight, though, is different. The firelight flickers in the hearth, and Alicia's hands move with a precision that only comes from years of repetition. Yet her thoughts are elsewhere, drifting away like the smoke curling up to the ceiling. She is thinking of the approaching winter and the scarcity of food that will come with it. The summer harvest has been lean, and though they have worked hard to preserve what little they could, Alicia knows that it will not be enough. The thought fills her with a deep unease, for there is nothing more dangerous than the long, cold months when the stores run low and hunger settles into the bones like a sickness. The wind picks up outside, sending a draft through the cracks in the door. Alicia pulls her cloak tighter around her shoulders, huddling closer to the warmth of the fire. The shadows of the room lengthen, and the familiar sounds of the night seem to grow more ominous. Her mother, worn and frail from years of labor, sleeps in the corner, the rise and fall of her chest the only sign of life. Alicia, too, should rest, but sleep eludes her. Her mind is filled with the weight of everything that lies ahead. There are no luxuries in this world, no soft beds or warm meals shared with friends. The comfort of a peaceful life, the dream of a future free from the weight of survival, is an illusion that has long since faded from Alicia's grasp. She knows the world she lives in is a world of hardship and sacrifice. Women like her have no choice but to endure, to bear the load of life's struggles silently, without complaint. And yet there are moments, small, fleeting moments, when she wonders if there's more. She thinks of the stories her mother used to tell her, tales of faraway lands where women could be more than wives and mothers, where they could learn and grow, where their voices could be heard. But those stories are as distant as the stars themselves, unattainable and forever out of reach. The evening wears on, and the glow of the fire begins to fade, leaving the room in a growing darkness. Alicia stands, stretching her stiff limbs, and moves toward the small table by the window. It is here that she has often sat, stitching garments with family, her hands moving deftly over the fabric, her mind wandering to places she cannot go. The window, small as it is, offers a view of the village beyond, the narrow dirt roads and the houses that seem to grow closer with each passing year. As her eyes drift over the landscape, she sees the outline of a figure walking toward her home. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, with the unmistakable gait of one who has spent years working in the fields. It is Eric, a neighbor who lives a few cottages down. Alicia's heart tightens, and a strange mixture of anxiety and curiosity floods her. Eric has been a presence in her life for as long as she can remember. He is kind and hardworking, with a smile that makes even the harshest days seem bearable. But despite the closeness of their families, Alicia has always kept a distance. She knows the unspoken rules of their world, the rules that tell her that a woman like her, a woman without dowry or status, is not worthy of attention from a man like him. Eric reaches the door, knocking gently but with a certainty that sends a flutter through Alicia's chest. She moves to open it, her pulse quickening, her mind racing. She has no reason to be nervous. After all, Eric is a neighbor, a friend. And yet, tonight feels different. There is something about his presence that stirs something deep within her, something she cannot name. The door creaks open, and there stands Eric, his face illuminated by the soft light of the fire behind her. His eyes, the color of the forest after a spring rain, meet hers with a warmth that catches her off guard. He is holding something in his hand, something wrapped in cloth. "I thought you might need this," Eric says softly, stepping inside. His voice is low, warm, like the earth itself. Winter's coming, and the harvest wasn't good this year. Alicia blinks, confused for a moment. Then, as Eric unwraps the cloth, she sees what he has brought: bags of dried herbs, fresh vegetables, and even a small bundle of grain. Her breath catches in her throat. This is more than charity. This is something different. This is care. "I can't accept this," Alicia says, her voice strained. "We have enough." Eric shakes his head, smiling gently. "No, you don't," he replies. "Not if the winter is as harsh as last year. I've seen how hard you work, Alicia, and I know what it's like to struggle. We're in this together." For a moment, Alicia stands frozen, the weight of his words settling on her like a heavy cloak. She has never been shown such kindness from a man who is not her father or family. It feels strange, almost uncomfortable, but it also feels like something else entirely. It feels like hope. The fire crackles in the hearth, and in the silence between them, Alicia feels a shift, a quiet tension that she cannot ignore. She is used to living in isolation, to being the caretaker, the one who gives. But now, for the first time, someone is giving to her, and she feels as if, in that moment, everything might change. Eric lingers for a moment longer, his gaze fixed on her. Then, with a soft smile, he nods toward the door. "Take care of yourself," he says. "And if you need anything else, don't hesitate to ask." As he steps out the door and into the darkening night, Alicia stands in the doorway for a long while, staring after him. Her heart is heavy with emotions she cannot name. She has lived so long in the shadows of her own life, carrying the weight of survival, that the light of kindness feels like something foreign, something to be feared. But as the evening deepens and the stars begin to emerge in the sky, she realizes something. For the first time, she is not alone. In the harsh reality of the medieval world, kindness is rare and survival is a constant battle. But in that brief, fleeting moment, something has shifted. Alicia is not just a woman surviving the world. She is a woman who can be seen, a woman who has the capacity to be more than what society expects of her. And perhaps, just perhaps, that is enough. The day is long and the work is endless. The sun hangs high in the sky, a dull, relentless force that scorches the earth beneath it. The field stretches out before Thomas, a young peasant, his back bent low as he digs into the dry soil with his weathered spade. The land here is unforgiving, the soil heavy and stubborn, as though it resents being worked at all. The air is thick with the scent of sweat, earth, and something else. Something darker, as if the very land itself carries the memories of countless generations who have fought and died for its yield. And still, Thomas digs one painful stroke after another. His hands are raw, the skin cracked and bleeding in places from the constant grip of the tools, the roughness of the work. His fingers tremble slightly as he rests the spade on the ground, wiping his brow with the back of his hand. There is no relief from the heat, no respite from the long hours of labor. His body is a landscape of scars, old and new, marks of survival in a world that shows no mercy. Around him, the other workers labor in silence, their movements slow and deliberate, as though they, too, are caught in the endless rhythm of toil and struggle. The women carry heavy baskets of grain, the weight of their burden evident in the way their shoulders sag beneath it. The men work the fields, their faces grim and lined with exhaustion. There is no laughter here, no joy in the work. There is only the heavy pull of necessity, the desperate hope that the harvest will be enough to get them through the coming winter. Thomas's eyes drift briefly toward the horizon. He can see the small village in the distance, the smoke rising from the chimneys of the homes, the people moving about their daily tasks. It is a simple life, a life of routine, of repetition, of survival. There is no room for ambition here, no room for dreams. Every day is the same. Wake up, work, eat, sleep. The cycle never ends. And yet, Thomas can't shake the feeling that there must be something more. He was born into this life, a peasant, the son of a farmer, and in all his 17 years, he has known nothing but the land. His father passed away when he was young, leaving Thomas to take up the burden of caring for his mother and younger siblings. He never asked for this life, never wanted it, but it is the only life he has ever known, and, in a way, he has come to accept it. His mother's voice drifts across the field, a soft call to gather for the midday meal. The workers begin to straighten, slowly making their way toward the small cottage at the edge of the field. Thomas watches them, his mind still caught in the endless cycle of labor. The thought of food, of rest, is a distant promise, one that comes too rarely to offer much comfort. But for a brief moment, the thought of sitting down, of taking a break from the unrelenting toil, feels like an impossible luxury. As he walks toward the cottage, he feels the weight of the day settle into his bones, a deep weariness that no amount of rest can truly ease. His legs ache, his back is sore, and his stomach growls with hunger. But it is not the physical pain that bothers him the most. It is the weight of his existence, the nagging sense that he is trapped, that there is no way out. The village, the fields, the endless cycle of work, it is all that he has. He is nothing more than a cog in a machine, a tool for the survival of the land. And yet, he can't shake the feeling that he is meant for something more. Inside the cottage, the fire crackles on the hearth, and the smell of simple bread and stew fills the air. The small table is set, the bread still warm, the stew bubbling in the pot. His mother sits at the head of the table, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her face lined with the years of hard labor. She is a woman of strength, of endurance, but even she has been worn down by the life they live. Thomas can see in her eyes the quiet resignation, the acceptance of the hardships they face. She does not complain. She does not ask for more. But Thomas is not like her. He cannot simply accept this life. He cannot shake the feeling that there must be more to his existence than work in the land, more than the daily grind of survival. He longs for something he cannot name, freedom, perhaps, or a life where he does not have to work himself to the bone every day, where he is not defined by the sweat of his brow and the calluses on his hands. Thomas, his mother says softly, pulling him from his thoughts. Come, sit. You've worked enough for one day. Thomas hesitates, his gaze falling to food before him. The bread looks dry, the stew thin, but it is enough. It always has been. He knows the struggles his mother faces, the sacrifices she makes to keep their family fed, to keep them alive. But there's a part of him that resents it, that resents the never-ending cycle of survival. He wants more than this. He wants to break free. But he knows that wanting more is dangerous. To want more is to be ungrateful, to be unworthy of the life you have been given. That is what his mother always says. It is what everyone in the village believes. They are born to the land, and they will die on the land. There is no other way. He sits down at the table, the wooden chair creaking beneath him. His mother places a bowl of stew in front of him, her hands trembling slightly as she serves the food. It is not much, but it is sustenance. She looks at him with tired eyes, her gaze heavy with unspoken thoughts. She knows what he is feeling, what he has always felt, but she does not speak of it. There is no point in dreaming of a life beyond this. Not here, not in this place. Thomas eats slowly, the food offering little comfort. His mind is still elsewhere, drifting back to fields, to the work that awaits him tomorrow. The endless toil, the grind, the weight of the world on his shoulders. Mother, he says suddenly, his voice quiet but urgent. What if there is a way out? What if there is something more? Something beyond this life? His mother looks at him, her eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. She has heard these words before, though they have never been spoken so openly. She knows the restlessness that plagues her son, the yearning for something more than the life they lead. But she also knows the cost of wanting more. Thomas, she says softly, her voice full of quiet wisdom, this life is hard, yes, but it is all we have. We do what we must to survive. You know this. The land will always be here, and it will always take from us. But we take from it, too, and that is enough. Thomas does not respond. He cannot. Her words, though meant to comfort, feel hollow. They are the words of a woman who has long since given up on hope, who has accepted the life of toil and hardship without question. But he is not like her. He cannot accept it. He cannot be content with simply surviving. He spends the rest of the meal in silence, the weight of his thoughts pressing heavily on his chest. Afterward, he returns to the field, the evening air now cool against his skin, the shadows growing long as the sun dips below the horizon. The workers are gathering their tools, preparing to return to their homes. But Thomas lingers for a moment, looking out over the land, feeling the pull of something unknown. The night is quiet, save for sound of crickets and the distant rustling of the trees. It is a silence that presses in on him, that fills him with a sense of emptiness. This is his life, his only life, a life of struggle, of toil, of survival. But what if it doesn't have to be? What if there is a way out, a way to change his fate? He doesn't know the answer, but the question lingers in his mind like an echo, a call he cannot ignore. And as he looks up at the stars, the vast expanse of sky stretching above him, he feels for the first time in his life the stirrings of something greater than survival. Maybe, just maybe, he is meant for more. The clang of steel rings in the distance, muffled by the thick fog that blankets the battlefield. It is a strange, oppressive silence that follows the battle, an eerie stillness that fills the air like a heavy, suffocating mist. The cries of the dying fade into the darkness. And for a moment, All that remains is the sound of horses' hooves against the churned earth and the distant rattle of armor. It is over. The blood has been spilled, and the dead lie forgotten beneath the damp soil, their names erased from memory as quickly as they were taken. Sir Alistair stands alone at the edge of the field, his heavy sword hanging limply at his side, the weight of it more than just physical. His armor is battered, blood streaked from the chaos of the fight, but it is not the blood of the enemy that disturbs him. It is his own. His body aches, the bruises and cuts from the battle deep and raw. But it is his soul that feels the heaviest. He is a knight, sworn to uphold honor, to fight for the king, to protect the helpless and defend the realm. Yet in this moment, as he surveys the carnage around him, he wonders whether he has ever truly understood what it means to be honorable. The battlefield is littered with bodies, soldiers, knights, men who have fought with as much fervor and conviction as he had. But unlike him, they would not rise again. Their sacrifice is final. The fog grows thicker, shrouding the dead and the living alike in a gray, indistinct veil. And in the midst of it all, Sir Alistair stands still, lost his own thoughts, grappled with a question that has haunted him for years. What is the true cost of loyalty? He had fought this battle not for glory, but for duty. The king had demanded it, and the nobles had sent their men. There was no question. Honor bound him to this cause, to this life of endless war. And yet, as he surveys the aftermath of the carnage, a cold chill runs through him, not from the night air, but from the knowledge that he participated in the very thing he once vowed to fight against. He has killed, yes, but he has also killed those who were once like him, soldiers with families, with dreams, with lives of their own. His thoughts turn inward, back to the days before the war, before the oath he took. Back when he was a young squire, eager to prove himself, eager to wear the mantle of knighthood. Back when honor was a simple thing, a clear line between right and wrong, good and evil. But the reality of war had torn that simplicity apart. There is no clarity here, only the endless gray of bloodshed, of loyalty to a cause that no longer feels just. Sir Alistair exhales sharply, his breath misting in the cool air. He can feel the weight of his father's expectations upon him, the unspoken pressure to live up to the name he bears, the legacy of family that has fought and bled for generations. His father, Lord Geoffrey, was a man who had instilled in him the virtues of chivalry and honor from the moment he could walk. But Lord Geoffrey was not here, not on this battlefield, not in this moment. It is Sir Alistair who must face the consequences of war now. His gaze falls upon the fallen knight before him, a man clad in similar armor, his shield broken and his sword discarded at his side. There is no name on his lips, no face to remember him by. He is just another body, another casualty of the endless tide of battle. Sir Alistair kneels beside him, his gauntlet-covered hand brushing the man's lifeless face. The blood that once flowed through his veins is now cooling in the earth. He sees the same look in the man's eyes that he has seen in his own reflection. Emptiness, resignation, the hollow look of someone who has given everything for a cause they no longer believe in. The silence stretches on, broken only by the occasional groan of a dying soldier or the faint sound of wind rustling through the trees. Sir Alistair closes his eyes, his heart heavy with guilt. His mind flashes back to the days before this war began, days when his life was simpler, when the promises of knighthood were still pure. He had been raised to believe that a knight's duty was to protect, to serve, to fight for the greater good. But now, after years of battle, after witnessing the horrors of war, he wonders if that was ever truly possible. Can honor survive in the chaos of bloodshed? Can loyalty remain untainted when the lines between right and wrong blur beyond recognition? His thoughts are interrupted by the sound of footsteps approaching. He looks up, his eyes scanning the mistless source. It is another knight, Sir Roland, a comrade he had fought beside for many years. Sir Roland's armor is also streaked with blood, his face grim and pale from exhaustion. He stops beside Sir Alistair, his gaze following the same path across the field. "Alistair," Sir Roland says quietly, his voice hoarse from the battle. "The king's banner has fallen. The battle is lost." Sir Alistair nods slowly, the weight of Roland's words sinking in. There had been no victory here, no glory to be had, only loss. He rises to his feet, the pain in his joints sharp as he stands. For a long moment, neither knight speaks. Their gaze is fixed on the carnage around them. Do you ever wonder if it was worth it? Sir Alistair asks, his voice low, his words carrying the weight of years of doubt. All this death, all this destruction, was it worth it? To defend a king who, in the end, led us to this? Sir Roland looks at him, his face tired, but his eyes steady. It was our duty, Alistair, he says simply. Our duty to the crown, to the realm. We do not question our oaths. Alistair shakes his head slowly. But what is a knight's duty when the crown itself is tarnished? When the king we swore to serve is just another man, flawed and weak like the rest of us? Sir Roland does not answer at first. He looks away, his expression troubled. But then he speaks, his voice quieter, more uncertain than Alistair has ever heard it. I don't know, but I have always believed that a knight's honor comes from within. It is not the king we serve, Alistair. It is the ideals that make us knights. The code, the promise of something greater. Even when the king falters, we must remain true to those ideals. Sir Alistair looks down at his bloodied hands, the dirt and blood of countless battles embedded in his palms. He knows that Roland speaks the truth, that it is the ideals of knighthood that have kept him fighting all these years. But now, as the weight of all that has transpired settles on his shoulders, he wonders if those ideals were ever truly his. Or were they merely the chains that bound him to a life of endless bloodshed? The silence between them grows heavy, and Alistair feels the coldness of the night creeping into his bones. The king is dead, the battle lost, and there is nothing left but the remains of a broken war. The world feels smaller somehow, as if the walls are closed in, leaving him trapped in a cage of his own making. What will you do now? Sir Roland asks after a long pause. Will you return to the king's court? To your father's estate? Alistair does not answer immediately. He stares out over the battlefield, the mist curling around the bodies of the dead, the firelight from the distant camp casting flickering shadows on the ground. For a long while, he is silent. Finally, he speaks, his voice steady but weary. I don't know, he admits. I don't know what comes next. I thought I knew once, but now I am not sure I understand what it means to be a knight anymore. Roland nods, understanding in his eyes. None of us do, Alistair. Not anymore. The two knights stand together, side by side, their gazes fixed on the wasteland of war that stretches before them. The fog thickens, swallowing the remnants of the battle, leaving only shadows and echoes behind. And in that moment, Sir Alistair realizes that the true cost of war is not just the lives lost, but the piece of soul that is forever torn away. Honor, once a clear and simple thing, is now a distant memory, a fleeting dream that slips through his fingers like sand. All that remains is the silence of a broken world, and the heavy burden of knowing that there is no going back. The knight must now face a new battle, not on the field, but within himself. The wind bites at the exposed flesh of Eva's face as she makes her way down the muddy path toward the village church. Her cloak, heavy and worn with age, flutters against her legs as she walks, the hem dragging to the muck with each step. It is an early autumn morning. The air crisp and sharp, and the scent of wet earth and decaying leaves lingers in the atmosphere. The sky is overcast, heavy with the promise of rain that will soon dampen the fields and further chill the bones of those who work beneath it. Eva is a young woman, no more than 20, though she feels older with each passing year, each season marked by the toll of endless labor and responsibility. Her father, a farmer, passed away 2 winters ago, leaving her and her younger brother Martin to care for their small plot of land. The work never ends. It is a life of routine, tending the fields, feeding the animals, making bread, and caring for the household. Eva's hands are calloused, her body worn by the long hours under the sun and the weight of the world she must carry on her shoulders. Her mother, too, has long since passed, an illness that swept through the village 2 years ago, leaving her family with an ache that would never fully heal. Eva had stepped into her place almost immediately, a child becoming a woman too soon. There was no time to mourn, no time to grieve. Life did not stop for sorrow, and so Eva, with the silent strength of one who must endure, kept moving forward. But today is different. Today, there is something stirring inside of her that she cannot explain, a restlessness that has grown too loud to ignore. She is on her way to the church, not out of duty, but because a part of her longs to be there, to feel the cool stone of the walls beneath her fingers, to hear the echo of prayer that rises in the stillness. Eva's faith has always been a quiet thing, something she inherited from her mother and her grandmother before her. But lately, the rituals and prayers have begun to feel hollow, as if they are just another part of the routine, another thing to mark the passing of time without meaning. As she approaches a church, she can see the familiar sight of Father Tomas standing outside, his long robes billowing in the wind, his hands clasped in front of him. He is an old man now, his once dark hair turned gray and thinning at the temples. He has served this village for decades, his voice a constant in the lives of its people. He is a man of faith, and yet Eva wonders if he, too, feels the weight of the world pressing down on him. "Good morning, Eva." Father Tomas greets her, his voice warm but weary. Eva smiles faintly, dipping her head in a respectful nod. "Good morning, Father." "Are you here for morning prayer?" he asks, his eyes searching hers, as if trying to see into the depths of her soul. She hesitates for a moment before answering, her thoughts spinning like the dust in the wind. "Yes," she says softly, though she is unsure whether the words are for him or for herself. "I think I am." Father Tomas studies her for a moment longer, his gaze penetrating yet kind. "You are troubled," he says quietly, his voice carrying the weight of years spent listening to the struggles of his flock. "I can see it in your eyes. The weight of the world is heavy on your shoulders, isn't it?" Eva's heart skips a beat. She is not used to being seen in this way, not used to having her inner turmoil laid bare by another. She looks down, unable to meet his gaze. "I am not sure anymore," she admits, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've done what was expected of me, Father. I've cared for the land, the animals, my brother. I've prayed, I've worked, I've served. But I wonder if it's enough." Father Tomas nods slowly, understanding etched on his weathered face. "Is it enough to simply survive, Eva? Is it enough to do what is expected, without ever asking what you truly desire?" She looks up at him then, her eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and something else, perhaps hope. "I don't know what I desire," she says, her voice trembling. "I don't even know if I'm allowed to desire anything. We are born to serve, to endure, to suffer. The land demands it, the village demands it, and God demands it. But what if I want something more? What if I want more than this?" Father Tomas does not immediately answer. Instead, he looks at her for a long moment, his gaze both wise and sorrowful. Finally, he speaks, his voice heavy with the weight of his own experiences. "Eva," he begins, "we are all born into a life of service. That is the way of this world. We are born into labor, into suffering, into sacrifice. But that does not mean that our lives are without meaning. Your work on this earth, the care you give to your brother, to the land, it is sacred. It is what you are called to do. And yet there is more. There is always more. The desire you feel, that is the longing of the soul, a longing for something beyond the confines of this world. It is natural, Eva. You are not wrong for feeling it." She looks at him, her heart racing as she tries to understand his words. "But how can I find that something more when my life is already spoken for? I have responsibilities. I have duties. I cannot simply abandon them. Father, I cannot leave my brother, my family, my land." Father Tomas sighs, a deep, weary sigh that speaks of the burdens he has carried in his own life. "You do not have to abandon them, Eva, but you must learn to balance your duties with your own desires. The key is not in neglecting one for the other, but in finding harmony. You must learn to serve not just the land and your family, but also yourself. For when you forget yourself completely, when you give everything and ask for nothing in return, you lose the very thing that makes you human." Eve is silent for a long moment, absorbing the weight of his words. She looks toward the church, the stone walls standing tall and unwavering in the gray light of morning. The bells begin to toll in the distance, calling the villagers to prayer. The sound is familiar, comforting, and yet today it feels different, distant, almost hollow.